Hi, I'm Daphne Russell, and this is Define This, a space where we reclaim and reimagine the words we think we understand. Every definition we carry was shaped by an experience, tied to a place, wrapped in an emotion, and often handed to us before we were ever had the chance to choose for ourselves. Here, we slow down, we ask different questions, and we listen closely, not to what the dictionary says, but to what life has taught us. Each episode begins with one word or a couple words and one person's lived definition. So today we have Andy Morales, and he's going to talk to us about his definition of high school sports. Thank you, Andy. I'm so
No
excited.
problem. Thank you.
All right, let me just brag about you for a little bit. Like you can brag about yourself. I'm going to brag first. So I first met Andy when Abby, my daughter, went to South Point for her freshman year of volleyball. And he ended up being friends with people I was later friends with. And so I got to know him through that, but also because of his dedication, his extreme dedication to high school sports in Tucson, Arizona. And I personally am grateful for what how he recognized my daughter, but I'm forever great. Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Forever grateful for how he recognizes how important high school sports are. And it's just life-changing for kids. I did not expect to cry, Andy, but I'm going. Apparently I am. So, thank you for your dedication from a family of athletes who prize high school sports. They're so important. So, and here you are.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
yeah, how did this all happen? You want to go back to your dad?
Okay, so yeah. So I had a choice about 20 years ago. I can either get my doctorate in education,
Mm-hmm.
and it was coinciding with the downfall of print media.
Mm.
So the Citizen was going down and down and down, and I coached club and high school softball, and I believe you played college softball,
I
right?
did, yeah.
And I was noticing that we had two newspapers at the time, the Star and the Citizen. The Citizen was more of a community paper, and I was seeing less and less stories. And well, now it's really bad in the paper. But
Yeah.
so U of A at the time, if you wanted to get your doctorate, you had to quit teaching because the professors were only offering classes during the day.
Right.
Um, so I decided, I'm just gonna stay in the classroom and it's a great opportunity to report on high school sports. And my father was a local, he was a local civil rights activist. And he told me he would like my site to help minorities and kids who didn't have a chance to get a scholarship. And I expanded on that and for all kids. So that's how it started. When I started out, it was TucsonCitizen.com. Well, I had my own blog for softball and stuff like that. Um, and then I thought maybe I'd do one story a week. And then it became one story a day pretty quickly on my own time and my own money and all sports, girls, boys, small school, big school. God, I was a nobody at that. Well, I was known in education circles and political circles, but not in sports.
Hmm.
So I would show up um, at small schools, and they thought they were in trouble. Why is this guy here watching us? Because they weren't used to that, or things like that. And it just snowballed. And when I started out, it was just myself. I didn't have a camera, didn't have a notebook, and I decided right away that it was going to be my motto was do no harm. So it was all going to be the positive stuff the kids were doing and with their school, with their youth. I also did youth sports, little league and stuff like that. I didn't care if there were any errors or anything like that on the field. I didn't care what the coaches were saying on the sideline because I've been there before. And so let's say there was an error in the infield, I would never put down Julie Smith bobbled the ball, which allowed the winning run to come in. I would just say there was an infield error that, because those kids, they all knew who did it. I didn't need to write that, and I knew the newspaper print media was fixated on that kind of stuff, negative. So do no harm was my start, and yeah, so that's it. Just snowballed, and God, I've been doing it for a long time. I'm the only one doing all-star teams. The newspaper quickly stopped doing box scores, and they stopped showing up to games, and yeah, so I don't know if it was just the right time or if I just lucked out to being um, and I'm already 60, so it's only going to be about 10 more years. So that's it.
I love that. It's only going to be 10 more years. Yeah, we're probably just a year apart then. I mean, I just turned 59, so I mean,
Yeah,
obviously a year apart, but we're probably a year apart like in graduation. Well, you said so many things. Do you mind if I jump
sure.
in and ask you a bunch of questions in there?
Uh-huh, no problem.
So, one, I think it would be actually really funny for people just to know you now and didn't know you before would just think it was hysterical that you didn't have a camera or a notebook at any point. It seems like you were almost born with the camera around your neck and then the notebook like in your hand. Like it's just funny because I remember sitting at South Point and you were across the way and someone's like, "Oh, that's Andy Morales. He writes up the kids and tries to give the kids a lot of recognition." And I'm like, "Wow!" Like look at him. Like that's so cool. Like it just that you and then you had all that stuff with you. And then you were so intense. Like and then right away I noticed the like what you're saying about the well, I want to go to the do no harm, but I want to go back to the focus. What I really, 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 really appreciate is what you just said about the focus. Like we spend, it seems like there's so much time spent in the last second of a game. Like there are 90 minutes or 2,000 hours before that moment where a person missed a shot or got a shot or whatever, right? And then for the focus to be that the way that the so many other places focus that you are like, no, like there was this little thing that happened and we're not gonna drag that kid's name through because they don't need their name through, you know? They're just a kid and it's a team sport. And I really like that. So actually, can you just maybe talk a little bit more about that? Like why your focus is like that, where that came from?
Well, I come from the education world. I don't. I played sports, obviously, and I coached, but I've been a teacher for almost 40 years, so I know it's a process, it's a journey. So when I see like a championship game, I look over at the team that loses. Obviously they feel bad, but they put years of work into that just to get to that point. So that's often overlooked. And I think even winning is just a stop on the journey. It's not the end. So there's always tomorrow. There's always more to build upon. So when I say do no harm, um, it's all just a learning process. And what I don't know the value in a negative or to me a negative is like an end. Um, it, it's not an end. I mean, when my youngest daughter put her cleats on home plate in college, that was the end. That was the end of me being involved in my kids' sports for 30 years.
Mhm.
But now they have kids, so and they're coaching, and so it's just part of the process. So when she put her cleats on the home plate, that was a positive. It wasn't a negative. So now you're gonna make me cry, but
I
I
know,
it
right? It's
just
so easy.
it's just do no harm. And whenever I see there's harm being done in the media, it just bothers me a lot. And then luckily when my brother joined on, he had the same because he came from the AP style media where you sort of had to do that, and he no longer does that. So it's and we only get writers who will do positive stuff. We don't comment on the negative. People write us all the time. Hey, this coach got fired. why don't you write about that, what they did? And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I know the story, but I'm not gonna write about that. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but I guess it comes from my world of education. I've spent the first 15 years of my life, my teaching career, working with severely disabled kids.
Hmm.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. My older brother was mentally disabled for most of his life. And, you know, there are victories everywhere.
I might have to call this entire thing called Victories Everywhere. I mean, that's the thing is like that the reason I wanted to ask you was because, I've spent a lot of time next to people. Well, I've coached, of course I've coached, right? But I'm not talking about that, but I've spent a lot of time next to parents who um I was like, man, that was amazing. Like sometimes I would take cheering so seriously that I was modeling like, hey, did you guys know there are five other kids on the court besides for your kid? And if your kid's on the bench, there's six kids on the court. And like any one of them could deserve your cheering. And I would cheer the other team. I mean, if some girl makes an amazing play, why aren't we all standing? You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I always had that. So I think that you and I had a very similar philosophy, which is, that's why I mean, I liked your positive take, but I also thought, I think there's more, even deeper layers of like, we're here for them. Everyone in this room that's competing, it's going to be over an hour. And those kids are still going to be friends or, and we're still going to be parenting. And I mean, I loved stopping a kid from the other team going, holy crap, where did you come from? Like, wow, that was just amazing. And I just think that that's important, and the important part, which is why I wanted to talk about like high school sports, like what you were saying about your daughter, like the cleats continue. It goes on, and the things that we carry with us from those thousands of interactions are the things that carry us through these other interactions that are probably even in some ways easier because of those. Well, probably always easier because of those thousands of interactions. So I love the victories everywhere because it is. That kid tried, that kid dove, that kid whatever flew into the bleachers, and like wow. Do you have anything other comments on that? Because then I have some other fun questions.
No, I mean, I know, and you know that, like in volleyball, there's 6 kids on the court, basketball 5, softball 9, but there's also double that amount or even more on the bench. And I'm getting all these messages. And
Me too.
practice,
I'm like, turn this off. Go ahead.
no one knows about practice, what's been going on during practice. You know, the training. How did those 5 kids on the basketball court get there? It wasn't. They had help from the kids on the bench, and
Right.
help from even the JV kids, and the freshman team. And so it's like there's like 150 teams and only one gets to be on the podium at the end. There's 20 kids and only 5 get to play. But they've all had the same struggles. They've all helped each other out. And so that's just my philosophy on
Right.
that.
The bench is so important. Like, it's not the bench, it's just another position. Like, all of those things are so important. I remember, okay, I'm going to tell a story with no names at all, but someone I was by, a parent was upset that his kid was not playing. And his kid was upset, clearly, on the bench. And I was looking at the kid being mad, and I was looking at the parent, and he said why the kid was mad. And he was mad the kid wasn't in the game, and the kid was mad. He said the kid was mad that the kid wasn't in the game. And I'm like, if we got in the car, I mean, I never yelled at Abby about things like that. Ever. I mean, I didn't even yell at her. Like, we just would talk through things. But if my kid was sitting on the bench angry that she wasn't in the game, there would be words in the car. Like, this isn't about you. This isn't about you. That's like you're hurting your team by being angry on the bench. Like that's not your. We never had to have that conversation, by the way. Just want you to know.
Yeah.
Skipped it. We never had to. In fact, my favorite story is when she was playing middle school volleyball. She got in the car and she didn't play in the third set. They had kind of like a more fun last set. And she goes, Mom, I don't mean to brag. And I'm like, oh man, my kid's gonna be, I was worried she was gonna be a prima donna. And she goes, but I'm the best cheerer on my team. I'm like, what? I mean, sixth grade, she was the best cheerer. And I was like, I am so proud. I was gonna burst, man. I just started crying. Like, oh my God, you're the what? Could tell me more. And then she started talking about all the cheers she came up with on the bench. And I was like, yes. Oh man. So, speaking of that, I just love fun. I love greatness. My dad raised a lot of kids and he had a couple wrestling state champions and then he had a not so wrestling cheap state champion. But my brother Brady was like he weighed like 140 and he wrestled the high level wrestler at CDO. We're talking about way back in the early 80s. And he beat the reigning state champion. And the state champion was very mad. And then the next time he came back and he just punished my brother by taking him down, letting him up, taking him down, letting him up over and over again until he just destroyed him. But my dad was like, "What's the greatest thing you've ever seen?" And in sports, and I'm like, Brady winning that one time. Because
Yeah.
that one time it was just like the most underdog to the most non-underdog. So I was just, for fun. Like when you're focused on, you're so highly focused on the positive what greatness are you seeing? Whether it's mental or physical, of course.
Well, um, uh, in different aspects, like overcoming something, or
Anything. I mean, when you walk away, you're like, man, that was
well,
one
I
of the coolest
saw
things I've ever seen, or, whether it's a play
well
or a coaching thoughtful
the
moment,
most
anything.
the most amazing athletic thing I ever saw was this player for CDO softball called Kayla Bonstrom. I don't know if you remember her. She went on to play at Stanford, but she had like 10 home runs in the playoffs her senior year, and in the championship game, she's also the pitcher. She gave up a home run to tie the game, and everyone looked at each other um, because she knew she was going to come up to bat in the bottom of the seventh. So everyone's like, "What's going on? We could have won the game." So then she hit a grand slam in the bottom of the seventh. Um, so she denied that she gave up the home run on purpose, but I know she did. That to me, when you have that kind of command of the sport, um, that's amazing. And people like Bijan Robinson, who I don't know if you know Bijan Robinson. He's running back.
You'd be
Uh,
surprised how I know him before, like, but because Abby and Bijan ran on the same track team,
yeah,
Titans. Yeah, so I knew when he was 10.
he is so atypical of today's athlete. Um, when he was at South Point and he scored against Saguaro, and everyone saw he scored except for the official. Thought he was down early, and Bijan just said, "Sir, I think I scored." And the official goes, "No, I have you down at the one." He's like, "Okay, okay, thank you, sir." Hand him the football, and then he scored on the next play. To me, that's just something you just don't see today. There would have been an argument. There would have been throwing the ball, and that's carried him well in his life. That's mostly because of his grandparents, Cleo Robinson. But there's also been, unfortunately, God, in 20 years, maybe six or seven parents have lost their children, or during a season. That's difficult. Um, but to see the parents overcoming, well, you never overcome that, but to see their progression during the season and through that, kids who I've known, kids who've taken their own life in sports. There's been like three of those. Cancer. Those are the most I wish I didn't have to deal with. But
Right.
to me, that's the most that just stands out in my mind a lot because there are thousands of stories of of kids winning or doing a perfect game or scoring 40 points or something like that.
Right.
But things like that stick out, or uh, uh, coaches passing away, or just difficult situations like that that I've had to work through. So
Can we go back to the, I mean, not, I mean, I guess it's just because I don't even know what to say about how incredibly sad that must be. I mean, just those parents to go through something and then have those, or the parent dies while the kid's about to go to the finals or whatever. So not to avoid those conversations, but can we go
yeah,
back to the softball play? I want to go back to the mentality it takes to give up a run in order to position yourself to hit a grand slam. I mean, that's some fun. Tell me a little bit more about that. That's amazing, actually.
well, she was. Well, you played softball. She wouldn't let anyone touch her bat.
Oh,
When I played in high school, we all shared the same metal bats.
exactly. Right.
They were those indiscreet metal bats that I don't even know what they were made out of,
Right, right.
and the same helmet. We probably had four helmets in case the bases were loaded.
Right.
And my glove was from Yellow Front. I don't even know if you know what that is. So it's
No,
like
no. I lived by Yellowfront. I went to Flowing Wells, so Yellowfront was on Prince. My
where
brother worked
where
it. Yeah.
where my daughter's last glove was probably like $300.
Oh,
Eh,
that's funny. Yeah.
my dad would have had a heart attack. But
My first club was Kmart, just so you know. It was a Kmart.
and her hands, beautiful, beautiful. Well, she's a woman now. I think she's the lawyer, but her grip, she would break your hand, and she just had great command of her game. I think she was the state player of the year that year, and she was also the pitcher. So, besides a good hitter, and she was also smart. Obviously, she went to Stanford in an era where you had to really be smart to go to Stanford. There was no NIL. There were
Oh,
no NILs.
yeah.
Um, and she just had such confidence. And as a home team, you don't have to bat if you win. But I think she wanted to hit one more time, and that's what everyone still believes. And and kudos to her for getting it done. And it could have worked out the other way, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's just confidence and it's not the confidence where you point a finger at another player
Right, right,
or or bow to the crowd
right.
like I did that. To all focus yourself. It was
Hmm.
just a quiet confidence that you don't see anymore. Um, uh, when my older daughter was all state setter at CDO back in the heyday, she she had the ability to tell the hitters, "Well, I'm not gonna set you anymore." So we had to draw her back from that. We're like, you really can't tell them that. You can think that, but that's a different kind of confidence because she knew what she was doing, and um, and she was working with her teammates through that. But it's this quiet confidence that every player's thinking, "Oh, I'm going to hit that home run or make the winning basket," but to know you're going to do it without drawing attention to yourself, without telling your opponent you're going to do it.
Right.
That was just amazing to me. And you see it now where players will pat their chest and boast that I did that, but they do it afterwards.
Hmm.
Um, and it's kind of, I'm an old time person. I don't, I think if you just score, you just have the hand the official of football
Hmm.
or celebrate with your friends. You don't need to show up the opponents, and that still gets to me. Um, uh, Coaches who talk to their team, I don't like that. unless they're saying good play or something like that. Um, so it's the quiet confidence in yourself, I think, is very amazing, and then that's what Caleb Bonstrom had, and she probably still has in her private life.
I bet. But well, that's actually what I was thinking about with your focus is that I feel like you're helping at least Tucson, broaden the definition of high school sports because people generally, as a parent sitting in the stands, everyone's like college, 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 college. I'm like, again, that's not, I mean, cool, great, super, but playing the sport in high school, pushing yourself, going to practice for 2 hours and still having homework and all those kinds of things. I mean, it could be musical theater. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying like the thing of pushing yourself, putting yourself in a situation where you're practicing difficult situations under duress for 2 hours a day for 3 months of your high school when you're 16 years old while other people are home um, on their phones or whatever, I think that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal that a child chooses to go put themselves under duress 2 hours a day. Let's just, make it the smallest amount, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Um, that's a really big deal. And that it does transfer over. Now you could, transfer over into the Stanford law. What lawyer would want to go up against that lawyer with that background? That she did that when she was 17 years old, let's say, maybe 18, that she had that presence of mind to purposely let someone hit in order that she could bat again. That's, I don't want to go up and against the lawyer like that. Well, I mean, actually, you would because the challenge would be great, but you'd probably get your butt kicked. And so I just feel like there's this honor if we were to continue like with your mindset is that we honor the sport, playing a sport, putting yourself under that duress and look at what happens. What do you get to say afterwards? So then that coworker that's irritating, that was just your shortstop was irritating. You know what I mean? Or just the setter was irritating. Like it's not a big deal. I can work around this. I've worked with people like that before under duress. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, they are giving up a lot of their social life for dances and stuff like that, or going out with friends, which is very important to a 14 to 17-year-old person. If you remember back that far, um, things are magnified. That really, you look back, are like, well, that really wasn't a big deal, but at the time, it's magnified.
Right.
Do you have the right pair of shoes? Do you have the right shirt? Um, that person's not my friend today, you know, and they have that whole life that they're dealing with while they're going to practice. And then you have that life of coach doesn't like me, I'm running more, or
Right.
I don't have, I don't think I can do this, or even we need better players, stuff like that. Um, and that's a lot for a person that age to deal with. So it is, and you mentioned the kids, and then there's the parent influence or the uncle influence. Maybe a kid doesn't want to be out there. Um,
Possible.
and I've had that experience too because this is I won't cry about it. My middle daughter, Brittany, played. I don't know if you know Kenzie Fowler, but Brittany played on her club
Oh,
team.
I do, because you know what? I'm the same age as the Pattons. Aren't they
Okay,
all Pattons? Yeah. I
yeah,
played basketball in high school against Patty Patton and her one older sister, Kelly.
I
Anyway,
can't remember. Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, they were Pattons, right? Kenzie
yeah,
Fowler.
patents.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pattons. Okay.
So from the age of 6 to 18, she played high level softball,
Oh,
and we went to trips to California. We went all over the country. She missed a lot of high school stuff, and then when it was time for her to go to Georgia for college, she said I'm not going, and I had burned her out. So and and then my last daughter Maggie, I had three daughters. My last daughter, Maggie, I just said I'm not going to do that again. So took less trips. She got to do stuff with her friends. And when it was time to go to college, um, oh, and Brittany didn't play her senior year, and she still got a scholarship offer
Wow.
because she didn't want to play anymore. But Maggie wanted to go to college, and she did really well. She led the Division two in doubles, and
Mhm.
she made them give her real classes.
Nice.
And my older daughter was all state volleyball, but she didn't. She got better offers, academic offers. So she was smart. She
Mm.
she uh she took the academic, and yeah. So there's a lot of parental influence in that. I, I always wonder, do the kids really want to be out there, or someone making them? But when you see the competition, you know that there's uh, you can just see that some of those kids are in their element. And when I played, and you played probably, uh, it wasn't cool to be a smart athlete.
Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to, and the one thing about Facebook, it's great. You can touch with some of those people, and I've said, hey, I probably treated you really poorly because I was smart, but I had to pretend like I didn't know who you were because I was in all the good classes, but I was also an athlete, and that was not a good thing. But
Oh,
my kids grew up in an era now where it's that's a bonus. If you're an athlete and you're smart, that's a bonus. It's
yeah.
not a negative. And so the kids are dealing with a lot of stuff, classwork, AP classes. No, not all of them, but some dealing with if I don't pass this class, I can't play.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's I forget what the main question is,
No,
but
no, it's okay. Well, at first I want to say sorry. I'm sorry that you had to learn such a hard lesson. That still hurts you. I mean, I still remember the Valentine's dance I didn't let Abby go to, or we decided, whatever happened. She was only in seventh grade, and I still feel bad. So I can't imagine.
yeah, and I apologized to her too. And then um, when I give talks, I talk about that to parents. And a couple of years ago, she texted me and said, when we went to these different cities, those were fun times. So she was able
Right.
to reflect on going to Illinois or Chicago or Florida or New York, California, because those were our vacations. That's the only way we, as
Oh
teachers,
no, I know. Yeah, yeah.
that's the
Volleyball.
only,
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna go sit on the beach. Okay. Great.
that was the only way we can justify it, spending that kind of money as
Yeah.
teachers, that those were our vacations. And very quickly, I also talked to parents about referees because I was really bad. I knew it was bad when Maggie was playing Bobby Sox. Well, it wasn't called Bobby Sox then. By then it was Baja.
Oh.
And my wife was coaching her, and I believe she was 5 or 6. And my wife, after the game, goes, hey, you have to calm down because the official told me before the game that he hates doing her team because there's this guy in the stands who knows all the rules.
Oh, wow.
And I thought my first inclination was like, well, why would he be mad if I knew all the rules? But then I thought about it a second. I'm like, if this referee, this umpire is worried about me, then maybe it's me, not him. So from that point on, it really doesn't matter. Um,
Right.
so I changed. Uh, not to say I didn't get tossed out in club sports. I did get tossed out a couple times, but when I now I have the vantage point of being in the stands, and I just hear what the parents say about the coaches, about the umpire, about teammates.
Hmm.
And I'm like, wow, that other parent is sitting right there.
I know.
And I'm like, this is a world that I didn't know existed because I was always in the dugout.
Oh, right. Right.
And it just so I talked to parents about that also. It's just not it's not positive. It's just a negative. There's no one can win from any of that. Um,
Yeah, I heard when Abby was running track with Bijan, so she was doing high jump. She did like a little bit of running, but she liked team sports. But I remember being in a track meet, and you're there like all day when your kid runs track, and
Yeah.
do one thing. They run for 30 seconds, and you're all done, and whew, it's quite a day. So I was really glad when she switched over and said she wanted to play volleyball. I'm like, oh, great. I don't really know much about it. I mean, I played volleyball in high school, but like, yeah, that sounds fun. But there was a mom yelling at a kid for how slow they started off the starting blocks, and the kid was about 7, and I was like, oh, I just like, I mean, I didn't yell at my kid that way, but I was like, the way that I am feeling and reacting at all is anywhere similar to her. I was like, oh, no, 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 we're not doing that. So I got really lucky. She was only 7 when I was like, I needed to wake up and not, you know, talk to her that way. And I guess I kind of always, my dad probably made it really not about the refs, because it's not one play. It's 500 plays and then it's one play. So I got kind of lucky on that. But speaking of parents, like since we're, on this, what would you say? What would be your advice? Like I think that people see us at our age and they're like, they think that we were never crazy lunatics when we were younger at some point, and everyone could have been. And there is a 25-year-old with a 7-year-old right now thinking that that kid's going to be the next thing, and I don't know. Do you have any sage advice?
Well, I think that's the first kid syndrome because when by the time, well, you've had your daughter senior, and then you look over and there's parents going through it through the first time,
Right.
and you've already been there, done that,
Yeah.
and this is their first experience. But to me, it's like your kids' dreams should be your dreams. Um, no, your dreams should not be your kids' dreams.
Ooh, I'm gonna write that down too.
So, so you have to do whatever you can to make sure their dreams within reason, obviously,
Yes,
they're
yes,
not
yes, yes.
they're not going to be Elsa from Disney or something.
Right.
But but yeah, your kids' dream should be your dreams. So what are you doing to make those come true? Maybe it's spend money on a tutor and less time on a pitching coach.
Mm,
Um, things like that. And just it's going to be over
right. You're
before
trying
you
to make
know
me cry now. Go
it.
ahead, keep making me cry.
And one thing, like when I do All Stars and I put out there, talk to me if I made a mistake and we could talk through it.
Hmm.
But don't send me emails building your kid up by cutting down other kids.
Hmm.
Like my kid's better than that, and everybody knows that. Better than that kid. And then
Right.
I'm like, well, that kid's on your team. What if I put this out there? What would happen to you as a person?
Oh, right.
So, um, yeah, so find the positives in your kids without finding the negatives in other kids. It's difficult in sports because let's say you hit a fly ball to center field and center fielder drops it. Your parents going to be clapping their hands. But what about the center field parents?
Yeah.
It always relies on someone else making a mistake, bad pitch. Uh, you couldn't guard the shooter. There's always you weren't in position for a kill, and it went off your body or um, you know, there it relies on someone else for the most part. So sometimes, as you know, there's just a player that's just too good,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you can do your best, and it's great to recognize that. A lot of people don't recognize that. I think you mentioned that earlier that you get up and clap for other players, but sometimes you're going up a kid that you just can't stop at the net.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you're in position,
Right.
um, And yeah, so that's what I tell the parents. It it goes quickly. Look for the positive. Do not talk in the car about it unless they ask you.
Right.
Um, do and for the most part, um, my girls were highly competitive, so they're not part of the typical. Mike and Dre had this saying where girls have to feel good to play well,
Hmm.
boys have to play well to feel good.
Yeah.
Um, it didn't matter to my girls. They held on to it
Yeah.
because that's my wife swam at the U of A and I played sports. So they were brought up in a competitive, their
Right.
uncles were all competitive. So they hung on to it. They weren't able to let it go. So my job was to help them let it go. And even when I couldn't let it go in my head,
Right.
because I saw things as a parent coach that, you know, and when I stopped coaching, oh man, I could sleep.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't have to worry about that. And when parents realize that the athletics parts is over, you still have to worry about your kid because they're still your kid. But
Right.
you're worrying about real life stuff now. Um, what can I do? Can I babysit their kids so they can go to work, or um,
Right.
are they gonna get a fair shake in the job world and stuff like that? Stuff that real. Or what if they get sick?
Right.
Did it really matter that um, they didn't get to play that game, or they made it
Right.
when they were
Right.
10 years old? Um,
Right. There's
so,
some craziness out there. Yeah.
yeah.
I like what you said about like it eventually be over. And like that kid's gonna remember what? What are they gonna remember about what happened and how you handled it and how you reacted and what were you saying and what were you doing, and it's all a relationship. You got the relationship to the kid, the relationship to the sport, relationship to the coach, and there's just so much. There's so much that you can use it as such a learning tool. Abby would say whatever she said. And I'm like, well, do you want me to talk to the coach? She's like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, I was just asking, but she never once said yes. But I didn't ever go behind her back and I never told her what to do. I just kept saying, well, do you need me? Okay, if you don't need me, then how can I help you? What do you need? And just, we really, really, I just worked on my questions, in the car, not ones with answers, not rhetorical questions, and I had a rule where, she would, she'd be beating herself up over whatever she did wrong that was the end of the world. And I would always pick two physical things that she did that were extraordinary and two thoughtful things, two things that she did with her, things that she thought that I thought were like, I can't believe you saw that opening or thought that through. That was super cool. So I think it's really about the focus and we can learn from our mistakes. Like I love that everything that you've been talking about is like you learn from this moment, so then you change for that. You learn from this and you change for that.
One one example I tell parents is I tell a story about my wife again, where I couldn't make my daughter's game, one of the games, because I can't remember what I was doing. But I called my wife and say, "Hey, how did Maggie do?" And she goes, "Oh, she got 3 hits." I'm like, "Oh, that's great." And on the way home, I'm like, "That's great." I go home and Maggie goes, "Well, I flew out to center field, I grounded out, and I got a single." And my wife's like, "She hit the ball 3 times."
That's really funny.
So I don't want people to go that far, maybe, but that's super positive on your kid, and that that's amazing also. And even though the kid didn't believe, didn't understand it,
Right.
um, to have that kind of view, you know, your kid did great. She hit the ball 3 times.
It's so funny. It's the funniest thing. Well, it's kind of fun. So, I mean, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to say? I do have one final, like, well, I have two final thoughts, but I'll go with the first one.
Well, one thing, I'm a teacher, and one thing is, um, I when I'm interviewing someone, I'll start an interview over because I'll tell them, don't say anything bad about your coach, don't say anything bad about the other team. You may be right,
Right.
Nothing good could come from it.
Right.
Once they start talking about the other team, I'll say, well, let's just start over. Tell me, what you did. There was, and one time I heard this girl, well, I'll just say it, she played basketball at Cienega. That's about a decade ago.
Uh-huh.
And they had changed coaches. And I heard her being interviewed by the newspaper, and she said, well, we're not better now with this new coach. We're a better team. And I told her afterwards, that's going to make the paper. Sure enough, it made the paper, and the team had to do sprints. The new coach made them run sprints. So, so I always warn players, don't do that stuff in interviews. And I know I'm probably not supposed to do that, um, but I'm helping them get through life, and I'll tell the little league kids when I interview them, just say something positive, don't cuss, don't.
Right.
Uh, so that's another aspect of what we do. We'll start interviews over. We won't put that stuff out there. Um,
I want to comment on that because you said like you don't know if you're supposed to do that. I think again, going back to the no harm, you're literally conveying to a child your entire philosophy by saying that. So they're having a grown up stop them from whatever other grown-ups are inside of their head. And I mean, the kid's being rewarded by being interviewed. The kid's being rewarded by potentially being, having their picture and stuff done through your website, through Facebook and et cetera, right? So you are allowing them the opportunity to see there's another way to look at this whole entire picture. And I think that that perspective taking is gigantic and that you're giving it as a gift. Like, hey, just in case it never occurred to you, you can go like this. And I think that's actually amazing. That's probably one of the greatest things you did, and I don't even know if you knew that you how great it is. Like it's fantastic. Like it really is. Like you're teaching them how to poise themselves for an interview that's going to go out in the world, and they're presenting themselves maybe for the first time to the public, and you're helping them focus on what is the most important part, and the negativity is the least important part. That's
I
amazing.
think we've all been in that position where we're like, man, did I say that?
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't have said that.
I wish I had a little Andy Morales on my shoulder when I had said
But
that.
I, but I think everyone's gone through that.
Hmm.
And there are no do-overs. It's not a video game. So,
Right. Oh,
but
right.
that's the only aspect I can let them have do-overs is by starting over. And sometimes they start over because they get nervous or why would I do that to a kid when I've seen other people just plow right through it. And I'm like,
Right. And actually get that negative conversation going,
yeah.
you know.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's just it, you know, my father. I tell us all the time. I guess it's better to do good than well. So that's something that we try to aspire to do.
I like
So
I like that. Okay, my last two things. Actually, I wish I could remember this quote. This parent told me at the end, it was a kid that Abby played at the U of A with, and I was like, this mom, I'm like, oh my God, that's my favorite quote. It's something about how you get respect. Don't don't get attention, get respect. I don't, but it was so clever. Anyway, sorry. But I want to go back to Bijan and his play, only because I mean he obviously is one of our as a Tucsonan, he's one of the biggest success stories sports wise. And I love that play. I love that story that's the one that you told about him is that he politely said to the ref, I made it. And the ref said no. And he politely got back and then scored it again. I mean, that's my that's really the point I was saying about the points and all the time spent, like all the time spent brought him to this moment. And I love that those two stories were so similar in the mental capacity because that's what high school sports create. He was in high school when you said that. Yes, he had these aspirations. Yes, he had a lot of other football experiences, but he was in high school when that moment happened. And that is reflective in who he is. And if we can create those kids that are like, I'm gonna let this kid hit so I can get up to bat again. Just can't even get over that. And then that they can go, okay, we'll do the play over again instead of, the parents screaming in the stands and getting in fights in the parking lots. So any last comments on Bijan? And then I have my final question for you.
Well, Bichon, he was a superstar as a kid, and athletic family. His granduncle was AFL Rookie of the Year
Oh, wow.
football,
Yeah.
and the Robinsons. They're all well known. So, and they're actually Bacon's. There's a long story why they had to change their name. So they just lost another granduncle
Oh,
and Don Bacon. So, it's a very extensive family, and Tucson's full of those families.
yeah.
Every school has a family, and he's just, um, and I taught your niece.
Oh, right.
Um, she was very strong. She can climb the rope. But yeah, Bijan to me is just someone you want your daughter to marry.
Oh,
I don't know. They put it like that.
I like
Um,
that. Right,
and it served him well. And it's not fake.
right.
It's not like Michael Jordan kind of, where you're like, you know, kind of is that really him or is that fake just to make a
Mm,
underwear commercial?
right.
But yeah, it's just authentic.
Hmm.
So he's himself, and that's how he was brought up. Um, but it has to also be within himself, because a lot of people are brought up well,
True.
and it doesn't turn out, or brought up poorly, and it turns out well.
Right.
So yeah, just be authentic and himself. So
Yeah, it's amazing. And under the scrutiny and under the pressure and all those things. Okay, this is kind of a little bit off, it seems off topic, but I'm really obsessed with people figuring out how to get into flow and like when they're really in the zone themselves. So I'm just curious, do you happen to know when you personally, whatever you're doing, whatever it is, when you know you're like time stops and you're like, that was amazing.
oh my goodness. Well, I get writer's block a lot,
Mm,
but when I start, I can't stop. But I don't know if it's amazing. Um, oh man.
that's it. It's when writing though.
Yeah, when I'm with my grandkids, I think that's an
Mm,
amazing, but even that comes to an end, they have to leave. But it's when I ran track in high school, I only had that runner's high one time. And I would turn the third corner curve on the 400, and it wasn't even a distance, it was a sprint.
hmm.
And it just went, phew. I've never had that feeling again. And um but I get sort of that feeling when a high school or youth game is about to start. Um so that's when I know I'm in my element. Um uh and then I wonder if the kids are feeling that.
Oh,
um so yeah. So I guess it's when I get off my writer's block or when I see my grandkids or when a game's about to start.
that is so cool. So you're literally kind of in many ways then daily living your dream.
Yeah, and I know it's coming to an end soon, so that's so as much as I can. I've watched over 460 state championships.
Oh, wow.
I maybe see 240 games a year. So,
Wow.
and I couldn't have done that without my family or uh I mentioned I didn't have a camera. I remember I was covering my first football game at CDO and I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? So I called my wife and she brought me our home camera during the game. And it just seems like that was so long ago, but it was not that long ago.
Yeah.
And and now people ask me where my camera is. I'm like, well, I don't have to because we have people taking photos now. So it's
Um,
just grown into this thing that's, and I have kicks for kids and all that other
oh, I forgot. Yeah.
stuff
Do you want to talk about
going
that?
on.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole nother world
Do you want to talk
now.
about your kicks for kids? For, you know, the people?
Um, well, like I mentioned, I'm a teacher, so I teach physical education. So I always notice that some kids, have shoes where I can see their socks,
Mhm.
or they're wearing, the family can only afford one pair, so they buy dress shoes for some reason. Um, or jellies. I don't even know if they still make jellies. No, it's Crocs.
Rocks, yeah.
So, so I'm like, so I just started out calmly, just slowly buying shoes for my own kids at Rio Vista Elementary School.
Mhm.
And man, it adds up because shoes aren't cheap. Even if you buy them cheap, they're not cheap.
Right.
So, maybe 5 grand. And that's without my family knowing. And my wife sort of suspected, because we weren't well off. We're better off now. We're both retired.
Right.
And but then the newspaper got found out about it. They wrote us the Northwest Explorer, which is
Oh,
a community paper.
yeah.
So and then it just exploded. And that one's like 35,000 pairs later. Almost every elementary school in Tucson and Nogales and some in other states sent shoes out. And yeah, it's just a way to. And then people are like, well, why don't you just give the family like a gift certificate? And I'm like, no, because then the shoes will go to the dad. They won't go to the kid. And I want them to be able to participate in PE.
Right.
And so I have to actually see the shoe on the kid. And some kids will like stare at them, and some kids will just run away.
Uh-huh.
And some kids will never ever again wear a pair of $80 Nikes. Um, so it's I teach at a Title I school, so that's what I do. I deliver shoes at Title I schools,
Yeah.
and even though there's Title I kids in every school, I don't think people realize that. And
Right.
and
And,
so then I started getting the high school teams involved. So let's say I do the photos for I cut down on this a little bit. I do the team photos for Catalina Foothills tennis or
mhm.
softball. I say, yeah, well, if you give me a pair of sneakers per kid, you don't have to pay for the photos. They're free. You can do it. So that's how it started. So that's 80 pairs of shoe sneakers right there.
That is so clever.
And I
Right.
want the kid. I know sometimes the mom goes out and buys them or the dad,
Right.
but the kid at some point, the athlete at some point has the shoes in his hands because obviously they're giving them to me.
Right.
So and then I give it to the feeder schools.
Mhm.
So like Tucson High, when the baseball team gives me shoes, I go to Ross Scrooge or some of the other schools, Carrillo around there. So the feeder kids get the shoes. And $705,000 later, um, that may seem like a lot, but that's only 35,000 pairs of shoes.
700,000. That's good work. Like, I don't even,
And
hey, that's incredible.
and I used to be tax exempt, but I'm like, why? I had a lawyer say, why are you're paying $1,000 to be tax exempt when people can't claim $35 on
Mhm.
their taxes?
Right.
You could a long time ago, but not anymore. You have to claim like 30,000 or 220,000. And so I'm like, yeah, $1,000, I can buy 100 pairs of shoes. So I stopped doing that. Now I just do kicks for kids out of my own family. So I um I remember one negative was my personal family bought shoes for uh what do you call them? Refugees.
Mhm.
And we took them to the refugee place, a couple dozen. And there are some people that got really pissed off about that. And they're like, you're telling people these are going to low income kids. And
Right.
I said, well, this is from my own family. This is not, and I lost a couple of friends over that because that's the world we live in now.
Yeah,
And so, but then you have to wonder were they really friends? But
right.
so I think we're proud of what we've done. A lot of help from the community. I want to reach 1 million, but it's slowed down because I'm no longer taking team photos for the
Uh,
most part.
mm,
Um, uh, the U of A competitive cheer squad just sent me a check for $1,000. So that stuff like that,
that's cool.
um, stuff like that helps. And when I drop off, and there's only been two schools that didn't know what to do with it. So I left them with the school anyway. One was really negative, but we've worked that out. But yeah, I'll show up at a school like um, I don't know, Centennial, and I'll say, "Here's a couple dozen shoes," and they're really happy. Now I don't see those shoes go on the kids. I hopefully the nurse or the PE teacher sees that.
Right. The
But
community reps are really good about that.
yeah, so but the shoe bank's at my school, Rio Vista, and no questions asked.
Um,
And I've had moms cry before. I don't care if you need shoes. I mean, it is just shoes. I know I'm not feeding the family or curing cancer or anything like that, but maybe if they don't have to pay $40 for a pair of shoes, they could buy groceries that week or something.
mm,
Um, you know, it's nothing. And then this retirement company found out about it and they did a commercial for YouTube and it's on TV now. People tell me
oh,
30 million views. So
really? I saw you mention it. What's the advertisement for? What's the company?
BlackRock,
Oh, okay.
if you Google BlackRock or go to YouTube, BlackRock, Andy Morales,
Okay.
there's like three different versions. I like the one on Twitter better because it mentions my father.
Oh,
Um, but that one doesn't have 30 million views. But it's just crazy. Every now and then people will see me in the store and they'll say, "Hey, aren't you that guy in that commercial?"
you're kidding. That's so cool.
I'm like,
I
well,
can't wait to look that up. That's awesome.
yeah. But yeah, so it's really, it all started just from I could have been a superintendent somewhere.
Yeah. These things
And
are competitive, but I think it turned out
I,
really.
I, I think it turned out. In the beginning, my wife used to say, "Well, are you going out again?" In the negative. Now it's like, why aren't you going out? So,
Right. Are you
right.
okay?
Well, like she wants me out
No, I understand. Yeah.
because
I got stuff to do. Bye-bye, Andy.
everyone's evolved. Where
Yeah, funny.
yeah.
Well, Andy, I really appreciate all of this so much.
Thanks for everything you do. I know you do some reading stuff and things like that, and
Oh, thanks.
books, right?
Yeah, I got a little super plan. Yeah, I realized that there's not actually a literacy issue. It's actually a relationship issue. And so if a child has a negative relationship because of the shame that they endured, boom, that's you see the manifestation of that. Like we get the effect of that. And so if we heal that relationship, which is super easy, literally super easy, then the child is like, oh wait. And then because all of the information is already inside of them, we all have a supercomputer that's picking up all this information, and then we can only pick or choose what we do with it, right? Well, if all of it's shoved in with shame, then there's like shame veil, and I just help the kids lift the shame veil,
Yeah.
and then boom, suddenly they're like, wait, I can do that? Like, yes, you could the whole time. So it's kind of cool. So I'm still doing stuff. And so this will be part of the YouTube channel I have and, hopefully gain some, organic views to start these bigger conversations about definitions. Because it's a definition in books that led me to this. When I asked a kid, hey, books are what? And the kid started crying. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Okay. If books make you cry, it's not because you read, Old Yeller. It's because of how you feel around books.
Yeah.
That's awful. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on.
Well, cry positive also or negative?
No, this
Oh,
particular what led me to all of this was one of the things was the negative. He started crying because just the thought of books, he felt so much
oh,
pain that he started crying.
okay.
And it's because of, hey, you're doing it wrong. You get told, just depending on the kid, you get told you're doing it wrong so many times. Some kid could take that a
So
hundred times. Some kid
how
could,
does that for you? How does that feel when people open up, kids open up to you like that?
oh man.
It's
Talk about
amazing, huh?
flow. Yeah, my flow is like, well, hey, so tell me about that. And then they start talking, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. And I can see them go, oh. And it takes the weight, just by saying I'm sorry, the weight of the shame just drops. And then I'm
Yeah,
like, and then I jump in and go, hey, you want to try it a different way? And
yeah,
then they're like, yeah. And so it's just like this moment when I see that they're going to be healed and they know
yeah.
they're going to be healed and they can heal themselves. It's amazing. I'm going to get it on video on Saturday. I have a kid coming over and I'm like, the mom's letting me videotape the son's, he was retained twice in fifth grade. He's in the Amphi school district and they tried to get help somewhere else and nobody else would help them and they found my number and I'm like, hey, would you come to my house? Like, can we videotape this? So I'll let you know how it goes, but I'm pretty excited.
That is
Because
great.
it really works when you just listen to their story. I mean, think about any kind of trauma your children have had, anyone. They tell you the story and you go, I'm sorry. And they go, oh, because you take off the weight. And if I can take off enough weight, then this kid's true nature will come through and what he really knows will come to the forefront. And then boom.
Yeah, it's a
Cool.
kids have told me all sorts of stuff that they didn't haven't told their parents. So whenever I hear proposed legislation where we have to tell parents stuff, I'm like, no, that's you know, stuff like coming out or stuff like that. That's a tremendous weight too. And it's probably a weight on you too if kid tells you something personal like that too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why aren't you telling your parents this? But then I realize why they can't tell their parents this.
Yeah.
So that's a different aspect. Maybe because I come from the education world, not from the journalism world.
Mhm.
So it's just a different um yeah, when a kid tells me something personal like that, it's an odd feeling, but it's I know the kid has to tell someone, so we work through it. Um, yeah, so I'm happy for what you're doing. I think it's important, and thank you for that kid, and I can't wait to watch that video.
I know. I can't wait for it to happen. I'm telling you, it's like the craziest thing because I'm like, I know it's going to work, but of course I don't know it's going to work. I haven't done it yet with him, but every time I do it, it works. So I'm, kind of batting 1,000 and I'm going to keep going.
Yeah,
So
cool.
thank you. I'm going to do my outro and then
Okay,
and then
cool.
we'll hang up. Okay, so thank you for listening to Define This. I'm Daphne Russell, the self-proclaimed education evolutionist, talking about teaching and learning and all that in between. I hope today's conversation stirred something in you, maybe a memory, a shift, or even a quiet redefinition of your own. Maybe your own high school sports experience, or even what your parents went through, wanting the best for you. Because the words we carry matter. And when we broaden what they mean to us, we challenge and change what's possible for us. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who might be ready to revisit a word they thought they understood. Thank you, Andy Morales. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Daphne.
All right, I will stop it.